with our aviation story. You know, folks, as I'm on the train, I read the Daily News or the Post on my way to the work, and whenever I see a story about aviation, I said I got to get Rich on because he's an expert. And I read an amazing story, a flight that was scheduled to fly from Phoenix to Boston had a quite traumatic event happen. And to fill you in on the details on this incredible flight, let's turn it over to Rich Kaplan.
Thank you, Howie, and once again, hello, Long Beach. This particular flight is a very rare event in aviation, but it's not uncommon that we see medical emergencies on commercial flights. They actually happen more routinely than we realize. But this particular medical emergency did not involve a passenger, but rather it involved the most important member of the flight crew, the pilot. It is, however, rare when it involves the pilot and he actually dies. That is actually what happened on board an American Airlines flight between Phoenix, Arizona and Boston, Massachusetts. Captain Michael Johnson, who was 57 years old, was flying the plane when he felt ill while en route. The co-pilot was able to successfully land the plane in Syracuse, New York. It was diverted by air traffic control. The crew took extraordinary care of the captain, but also of the passengers, because the passengers were actually aware something was wrong. They noticed a lot of scrambling between the flight crew, the flight attendants. They were bringing equipment and stuff. So they were aware of what was going on. Now, what's very important is that at no time was this individual in any type of malicious involvement with drugs or anything. The autopsy that was done on him did determine he died of natural causes. Back in 2006, he went in for a routine double bypass on his heart. So apparently this played a role in that heart attack. His wife had told officials that he underwent this back in 2006. The coroner concluded he had died from a massive heart attack. Now, the airplane itself was an Airbus A320. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because a lot of people now are wondering what happens if both pilots, God forbid, were to die. I'm going to touch base on that right now. The current technology regarding commercial aircraft allows these airplanes to pretty much fly themselves through autopilot. However, they cannot land themselves. So what usually will happen is the flight attendants will go from row to row asking passengers if they have flight experience, just like you see in the movies. They will, if the passenger, like myself, I have a little bit of experience, they will have me go up to the flight deck or someone with similar experience. They will be connected to air traffic control where there is an expert on that particular type of aircraft who will guide them to the ground safely. They will explain to them what they need to do, like disengage the autopilot, engage the flaps, lower the landing gear, line the aircraft up with the runway and bring it in. That's what would happen if both pilots had succumbed to fatalities. Now, what is extraordinary about this story is that the passengers at no time panicked. There was no nervousness on board. Everything was handled with the highest degree of professionalism that you would expect from a major carrier like American or Delta. And there were 147 passengers on board the flight. It was flight 550, which departed Phoenix at midnight. Now, this is another interesting piece, because if you ever go to John F. Kennedy or you go to LaGuardia just to watch the planes, you know at around 5 o'clock in the morning when this jet's landing, there's not going to be a whole of a lot of activity. That's miraculous, because had there been a lot of activity, they would have had to drastically figure where to bring him in. Now, in this particular case, they brought him and diverted him to Syracuse, New York. Now, if you're like me, you're wondering, why Syracuse? Why not bring him to JFK? Syracuse is the headquarters for the New York Air National Guard Air Wing. They are trained in everything from how to deal with terrorism to how to deal with something like this. They had emergency crews on the runway the minute the jet landed. The pilot was taken off the plane. Sadly, he died while on board. Someone had brought up something very poignant that I also want to bring up. If you're an airline pilot, and if God is going to call your number, you want to go out doing what you love. That's what this man did. He died doing what he loved. He loved to fly. And I commend him in the sense that, you know, the flight crew, the co-pilot knew exactly what to do. He took the stick immediately, declared an in-flight emergency. Procedures were handled right down to the letter. And that is why we have a successful outcome. That's why this airplane landed safely. That's why everyone survived. A lot of people wonder, you know, well, what if there had been a different outcome? 9 out of 10 times, this is the general outcome we're going to see. Aviation has become so good in dealing with these kind of situations. A case in point, I was on a flight to Tampa, Florida, and a passenger had an appendicitis. They wound up delaying our flight so they could bring an ambulance crew on board, take the passenger off, and at no time was any of us angry about this. You know, we all have schedules, but these things happen. And as a human being, it's important to remember that yes, he is the pilot of our airplane, but he's also a human being. And I commend everyone involved. I want to send a special shout out to the Air National Guard in New York, who escorted this airplane to Syracuse. You guys are the reason why we don't have these events turn tragic. Thank you so much for what you do. We love you. God bless you, and stay safe. And I just want to send a quick happy birthday to my friend Susan. Happy birthday, Susan Wilson. We love you too. Thank you.
All right. Great job, Rich, as usual. And it was a compelling story. I knew Rich would knock it out of the park. And he did a great job. All right. Who here wants to hear Eric?